Ooh, it's too dark outside to see my face. Well, you can see a little bit. See the white in my eyeballs. Anyways, this recording is about something very quick, something very simple. We live in a world unlike any country has ever existed within before. I mean, there's a lot of diversity in Europe, and there always has been a lot of diversity for various things all over the world. That's why, way before all this, wars were fought between smaller communities and more localized regions, which now seem encompassed by nations of the globe and yada yada yada. But ultimately, simply, for the millennial generation, we have been allowed to choose, learn from, grow with such a diversity of ethnicities, identities, cultures, ideologies, and uh, variable emotional states of lower and higher level centricities in which we choose to, um, I don't know, sort of utilize for our individual benefits of grasping that to which is around us. Um, at any given point, though, if we overlook how modern day prejudice can overlap itself, um, we overlook the most critical variable of all time, which is the point is to work together and to not hate each other unless we're legitimately doing something we can all agree upon is sort of evil, which is, you know, creating an unrighteous path to death and hate and indignant behavior, which is frustrating to deal with, drives up our stress, erodes our brain cells, and makes us pathological mentally, inducing further mental illnesses, which are heightening based upon technological advancements, higher uh, demand in our professional workplaces, in some cases, and the intensity into which we experience life. My father is a world renowned scientist about free radicals, and even though he deals with plant life and pathologies within plants, he was able to figure out it's possible Lance Armstrong gave himself those 7 cancers by working out his body too hard, too much. And however, riding a bike might come out and pushing yourself too hard for modern variables of intensity, it's rough. But don't overwork your brain trying to fixate on civil rights when the most important civil right is to essentially calm the environment. You could translate global warming into uh, intensities of modern circumstance. A lot of people would like to go move into a sort of Amish community, especially if they were allowed a couple modern technologies and simplify their life so they didn't have to keep so many things on their head or comprehend a social variable into which so many people know so many different things for so many different reasons and start to display the pathologies of a celebrity just trying to utilize simple social media patterns and technologies. The overlapping of these intensities enhances when identity structures are identified in a humiliating and cruel manner unto which there is no point. If you're identifying good and bad, beneficial, non beneficial, and erroneous in debate or discussion, If you're just trying to make something look stupid because somebody made you feel stupid, then you might be following the pattern of something nonsensical. Um, but back to prejudice. How this intensity of prejudice enhances itself through multicultural, multi ideological creativity and inspiration of creating something new in a never ending ideology, which is to do just that instead of sustain that into which we all agree upon. Uh, you have to comprehend the psychological demand and intensity you're placing upon your everyday thought. But most harmful is that into which makes you angry and humiliated and alienated. Thus and then, therefore, when talking about civil rights in terms of our communal identity and as our individual capacity to invent anything within ourselves, around us, for ourselves, to enjoy and hopefully reduce the anxieties of the world's overbearing circumstances which we can't control, which is where a lot of various philosophies focus upon. We need to remember prejudice is the major umbrella to the sort of variable marketing unities into which we differ or challenge one another's ways. Thus and then, therefore, we must share the platform to speak about the injustices against us as things into which might be singular, even. I mean, Calico Cat's got 3 different colors. And if one cat is, I don't know, talking about how their hairless species is uh, the only one that gets made fun of by all the other cats, and da da da, for some reason, it's like, well, if we focus on one species, or breed of cat, and we don't focus on the variable prejudices of the unique breeds of different types, and these breeds intrinsically uh, in this adaptation are these endless breeds unto which we are creating here in this modern American individualistic identity of multiple factions of how one comprehends reality and exists into creating a consistency to their way of life. We have to bring up not how and why somebody offended, variables into which they've created their ways. We have to go further than that and speak more philosophically about how not to be irrationally offensive if constructive criticism is absolutely necessary or relevant for intriguing variable conversation. So ultimately, if you're hogging the stage of civil rights in a world into which people are experiencing prejudice in so many unique forms, to the point into which your principal stage for prejudice, however, what finite variable that might be critical to you or people around you, the best way to actually get away from that prejudice is to not put yourself onto that stage and or hog that stage. It's to philosophically rise above the flames, as in the song Incubus, and ultimately think deeper about how we cannot inflame negative emotions which release chemicals which erode our brain cells to a point into which we start to flare up irrationally over constructs into which one feels a form of either low or high centric pride within. But naturally, if you're defending a variable into which is literally economically competitive in the world's trade system, it's a little different. But through the subsets of that into which we choose to live life through and experiment with for the future generations, and to which we can pass down to our children, ultimately, we need to think not medicine, but how do we stop ourselves from inducing hurt, pain, however subtle, smooth, or scarringly erratic it might present itself. You gotta be pleasantly willing to always put yourself in another's shoes when creating constructive criticism, especially if you don't want to look stupid eventually when you find yourself in their shoes naturally. And that's the essence of a lot of Eastern philosophy, I think. That's why the Tao takes so much anxiety away from me, because I don't allow one, two, or three to stop me from identifying and loving all the 10,000 different things, if you catch my drift. I mean, maybe only the Taoists do, because they're the only ones that read that poem and get that point. But, you know, it's amazing how many different things, identities, ways, patterns, benefits, and self-sufficiencies for a unique state of diverse existence in this modern age and world. But that's all.